Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As you heard, I am a medical anthropologist, and medical anthropology is a fascinating field methodologically because, on one hand, you can go and study deeply just one person, and on the other hand, you have randomized controlled trials where you look at the averages and statistics and try to increase health as growing potatoes and rye. So operating between those fields has been a very interesting experience for me, but working in those different places, my major topic has been around how people endure suffering, how they cope with their severe disease, and how they think about death and dying. And everybody of us, probably also Gupta would agree, that fear of death is pretty big in us. But what I have seen in doing this kind of ethnographic fieldwork in several countries is that if people wish to die at home, surrounded by their families, this is between 60 to 80%, then in fact 60 to 80% of people die in the hospitals. And in hospitals, they are medical places, but people die also culturally. And therefore, I want to tell you a story about a guy whose name is Ahmed. He was treated in the oncology ward, and then suddenly decision was made that he cannot be cured anymore. He will be taken to the palliative care ward. Palliative care is one of those four types of care that everybody should have access to. But next to the preventive care, curative treatments, rehabilitation, palliative care comes in where a person cannot be cured anymore and needs this kind of more comprehensive care. And the focus of palliative care is on quality of life, but very often in hospitals, this decision to move someone from oncology ward, active treatment ward, to palliative care comes very late. So in this case also, Ahmed was already dying, and his family was not informed about this transfer. And then his wife arrived and was seeking for his husband, and then also his brothers arrived. They found him at a different ward, and the decision was that somehow that now the hospital and the medicine has failed Ahmed. And communication was also complicated because the wife did speak several languages, but German was not her main language, and also no interpreter was offered. And that in medically, the appropriate care for someone who dies from lung cancer at this final stage would be to lift up the bed. And that was what the nurse did. And then when she came back, she saw that the family had lowered the bed, put Ahmed to his side, wrapped his hands, and nurse got very angry. Lifted up the bed again and said, "Don't touch anything." And as you can see, this was a situation where a war between medicine and culture suddenly started. And death, per se, is a once-in-a-lifetime event. You have no retakes on this. And if we let someone die because on the one hand, we have a perception of medically appropriate care, and on the other hand, the perception of culturally, religiously, socially appropriate care. And we don't take fight out of this situation, but we put fight into it. There is a problem. When I started to work in hospitals in all those countries, one of the requests that I received was that, well, you know about culture, so give us checklist what to do with those people. And medicine is very much based on checklists, outcomes, and screening instruments where you have like some kind of average, and then you see how this person places. and then you maybe have some suggestions for the care. But at the end of life, it seems kind of which is like, because of this situation, it's just once in you die, yeah? And you better get it right. It seems somehow inappropriate to handle based on the checklists. And because what a checklist does, if it's based on some kind of cultural attribute or religious attribute, it puts people in the boxes, and then you think that you have the knowledge. But instead of putting people into those boxes, you should build up relationships. You should have the communication. You should ask what matters to you most. How can I help you? How can I provide the best quality of life for you at the end of life? What can I do for you and your family to give you the best possible care? And therefore, we know, for example, from the patient safety research that in the ER, when people are brought in and the staff makes this kind of hasty decision that, oh, this is a junkie and this is a person who needs this kind of Balkan package, which is a diagnosis, informal diagnosis in Germany for people who come from Balkan. You can look it up on the internet what it means. So if people are put into this kind of stereotypical categories, mistakes happen during their treatments, and it can even lead to death. Therefore, I have been starting to vouch for another, which is the term which is closely linked to the patient safety. It's called cultural safety. And we need to bring cultural safety back into the hospitals, which are, even when they operate within our national healthcare systems, they are pluralist, they are multicultural, they are filled with people who are very diverse in many ways. So they are never representatives of some kind of special group. They are not representative of Asian tradition or Muslim religion or whatever categories, or Eastern Europeans. So we all have our individual needs. And this cultural safety notion stems from New Zealand. But what does it mean today in our pluralist world? It means giving up the power, because beyond the cultural safety is the understanding that healthcare professionals hold enormous power above us, and they make decisions about our lives and also about how our relatives' lives will unfold after somebody dies in a hospital. So instead of giving people the checklists, we should speak that the appropriate care is a negotiation with this particular person about their care and what their preferences are. And again, this needs some kind of humility. This needs this kind of skills of building relationships. This needs maybe also the courage to say that I don't know things, and invite people to let you tell about things, how they perceive things. And it, of course, takes lots of self-reflection as well, and maturity to be there for a person who is dying. And this is actually my very short message. I hope that it did not scare you very much or cause any fear, but as death approaches us all at some point, have those conversations with your families, make up your own mind what is good for you, check it, recheck it, and I really hope that this kind of cultural safety will be implemented, at least when taking care of people who are dying in our hospitals. Thank you very much for listening. Listening is learning.